Limitless Wrestling fans, we back in the back of a Cadillac #1 with a bullet. We are Power Pack. John Alba with the czar of Limitless Wrestling and Let's Wrestle, Randy Carver. We are here coming to your ears. Randy, what is cooking?
I am hunkered down at the Limitless Dojo right now and not really doing too much. A lot of video edits and a lot of new stuff on the YouTube, but that's pretty much my life at this point. What are you doing?
It is still business as usual for yours truly, because why the hell would a pandemic stop me from getting to go out and tell great stories every single day, Randy?
Fun. I saw you were in the office the other day too, so they got you moving around.
I was in the office. I was today interacting with people, shooting stuff. So, you know, who needs social distancing precautions when you can put yourself right in the elements and ensure that you're probably going to get coronavirus? Right?
I'm pulling for you, John.
Nah, it's all right. You know, we're just making do. It's been super weird because, like, some pieces that I'm working on, like, I'm shooting solely on Zoom, which is something
I was just going to ask about that. I wondered if you were doing like a lot more video stories, instead of.
I'm definitely doing more on like Zoom and conferencing and all that. Like, so I have a piece coming out on Thursday that is about the effect of coronavirus on the local independent wrestling scene. And
Okay.
And I went and met with a couple graduates of the Team 3D Academy, which is, of course, the Dudley Boys School. The one here is the one that Davian runs. So I spoke with a tag team from there called Fabulous Fitness, and they were super fun. And upon your suggestion, I did a Zoom call with Effie.
Very cool.
And,
I'm glad that came together because I felt like he'd be especially like he had a show.
Yes. Oh yes. Let me tell you, it is worth it alone just to watch this piece to hear John Alba say Effies Big Gay Brunch.
Great name.
It is certainly worth it alone to hear that. But I'll tell you, man, it made me go back and watch some of his stuff. He's really talented.
He's very fun. We've tried to bring him into Limitless a couple times, but his popularity has really picked up, in the last 6 to 8 months. So just stringing dates together like some other talents who we try to bring in and only maybe get once in a while, it's just tough to do. But I definitely think when things get back to normal, he's someone I want to get into a Limitless wrestling ring.
It took me watching his video, it took me like about 5 minutes to realize he was wrestling in fishnets.
Yeah. He's got such a fun aesthetic, just something that I don't know, you don't see a lot of on the independent scene.
No, but he had some pretty good stuff to say about LGBTQ representation in pro wrestling, and it was good stuff. So that piece will be dropping on Thursday. Check that out on social media if you get a chance to. You have been just trying to keep busy up there, Randy, huh?
Yeah. Basically, at a time
canceled.
like this, our entire focus turns to getting content out there for people. So it's a change in pace for sure.
What kind of news do we have for people right now?
Well, not great news if you're expecting events soon. I think a lot of people are under the same restrictions right now or sanctions, but I think it was yesterday, Governor Mills made the announcement that she was putting a stay-at-home order in place for the state of Maine that kicks off April 2nd and does not close until April 30th. And by the way, things are going, we don't know if that's even going to be the true turning point for this April 30th. I think it's no one can really judge how this thing is going to move. So we're again just going to play it by ear and try to figure out what the best route is to take. But as of right now, Wrestle Prom is postponed. Obviously, there's going to be no events going on in the state throughout the month of April, so we are going to be no different. We're looking towards the end of May at this point, to be completely honest, and I don't even know if that's attainable. It's all going to depend on how slowly we can slow this thing down. So we're just going to be hanging out at home, but luckily we do have a lot of stuff in the can that's been never released for footage, whether it's from dojo tapings, whether it's from some fairs and festivals we hit over the past couple years. There's about, I think I did the count the other day, like 80 to 90 matches that have been unreleased, unseen, that we do have in the archives. And that's basically been the main focus over the past couple weeks is, editing a bunch of stuff up, throwing some commentary on there, making it look nice, and then figuring out what the best way is to get that out there. So if you're not, definitely subscribe, youtube.com/Limitless Wrestling or on independentwrestling.tv. We've got a ton of events up there, plus the Pandemic at the Dojo new series we have that dropped on there last night. Tons of stuff coming as well. I think we're going to upload some of the old dojo tapings over the past year and a half to IWTV pretty soon. So a lot of stuff coming.
I'll tell you what I would love to see, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I would love to see you take some old matches that you have in the can from a couple years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it may be, and provide, like you know how DVD commentaries and stuff like does you get the people who were like in the movie to like talk about what's going on. Like I would love to hear like AG talk about an old AG match that
would be cool
3 years ago. You know, I mean that's all super cool stuff that could be in the can maybe.
I was thinking about doing some maybe match watch-alongs with
that's what I'm talking
I was
about.
talking to Danger Kid about that yesterday, and maybe even some reaction videos. Like I was thinking of putting together like a string of some of the wildest clips in Limitless history and then having some of the roster watch that and get the reactions. I don't know. I would love, this is a time too where I would love to hear from the Limitless fans of what they'd like to see for content. We're obviously restricted as to what we can do for in-ring stuff right now, but there's a ton of extra stuff like we just talked about that we can do, and we'd love to do. So definitely throw us a tweet at LW Main or a message, or just drop a comment on the podcast and let us know what you'd like to see in the future.
And I also have an idea that I really hope that we can get the ball rolling on. You know, the world was kind of stripped of March Madness this year, but that doesn't mean that bracketology goes away.
Okay.
Just a thought. Let's put some thought into it. You know, we've talked about it. I want to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm interested.
So we'll see. So be on the lookout for all Limitless social media, and we'll remind you about this later in the podcast, but we may as well drop the news now. On the next episode of the Limitless Wrestling Podcast, we're going to have Ace Romero on, and we want to hear what you have to say. If you've ever had a question for Ace Romero, maybe something that you've wanted to ask, you didn't get to ask at a show or whatever it may be on social media, we want to hear from you, don't we, Randy?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked to Ace Romero way back on episode 11. So within the first couple months of the Limitless Wrestling Podcast, and we've really missed, a couple years of the career and life and times of Ace Romero. So we're going to talk about his AEW debut over a year ago. We're going to talk about him signing with Impact Wrestling. We're going to talk about his career in Limitless Wrestling throughout the past couple years, as well as the Limitless debut at the Portland Expo. Meant a lot to a lot of our roster members, especially the guys who are local, the guys who really understood in the grand scheme of Maine wrestling how much that meant. And Ace Romero is right on the front line of that. So it'll be a fun conversation, and we want to split it up. We do want some fan questions, so you can submit them on our Twitter. We're going to put a thread up, and you can drop some comments and questions in there, or you can email them to randycarver@yahoo.com. Send as many as you'd like, and it's going to be a longer conversation to just sit down and really catch up with Ace Romero in this wild time right now.
Oh, and I've got some questions for sure. After seeing some clips that I did not know existed this past week, aka
dude, talk about those right now. Talk about it.
I had seen very limited video of Ace Romero before he became Ace Romero.
When did you, like, what was your introduction to Ace Romero? Like, what time frame of Ace?
I guess it would have been very early 2016.
Okay.
So, he was starting to find his own a little bit at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So he's wrestling like legitimate places at that point and kind of, moving and grooving.
Right. So I got to see some video of him before that, when he was just Angry Samoan number 2, or,
Oh, yes. I didn't realize you saw that far.
I saw some stuff there, too, and I saw some tag team stuff that I'm very excited to talk about. So
yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll deep dive into Ace Romero because there's a lot of. I mean, he started in your neck of the woods. I mean, his first couple matches were in Florida because he was a Team 3D Academy trainee.
Yep.
So we can especially talk about that now that you've been to the facility and you've talked to other students from there.
Yeah, I've been to the 3D Academy a few times. They do a great job, man. They turn out so much quality talent over there.
That's good.
If you're a wrestling fan listening to this and you have desires to get in there, if you're near one of the 3D Academies, there's one in Orlando, and then there's one, I believe, in Danbury, Connecticut, I think.
That sounds right.
And that's the one that Bully Ray runs. So Bully Ray runs that one. Devon runs the one in Florida. So if you're looking to get into pro wrestling and you're in those neck of the woods, go check them out because they are pumping out quite a bit of talent that you find today in AEW and NXT and WWE. So definitely go check them out. Let's talk about the big release that we had this week. Pandemic at the Dojo, Episode 1. What is the goal behind a show like this? Because this is more or less a studio taping, and it provides a chance for the Limitless audience not just to get a little bit of their pro wrestling fill, but maybe to meet some folks that they haven't necessarily seen either.
Yeah, so this is basically a Limitless Dojo taping come to life on IWTV. Usually we do these dojo tapings as just single match releases for youtube.com/Limitless Wrestling. It acts as content for us and then a nice edited match with we really give a lot of freedom to the wrestlers who participate because if they come in and have someone that they'd like to have a match with and they really want to blow the roof off with that person, we usually do take match suggestions at every taping, and this Pandemic at the Dojo taping was no different. A lot of these matches were put together by the wrestlers themselves or were suggested by one or the other, and we ended up putting it together, and it gets a lot of the creative juices flowing with the competitors. It's a really different environment because you don't have fans there. It's just your comrades, fellow wrestlers around ringside, maybe some referees. We also occasionally have some Limitless Dojo students who are maybe right on the cusp or just starting to wrestle matches. Some of them have their first matches at these dojo tapings. So it's a really fun vibe and a really interesting environment of people at all different skill levels. Some people who have never competed in Limitless Wrestling. Some have never competed in Let's Wrestle. And we had a lot of that throughout this Pandemic at the Dojo series. So we ended up being able to put a ton of matches together in a short amount of time. We had a poster sale online as well, and that's still available on limitlesswrestling.com/accessories. There's a Pandemic at the Dojo poster. There's a couple tiers of that, and all the money that we raise off of anyone who donates to those tiers, they get the wrestlers who participated in this project. The money is split amongst them. So we were able to send quite a bit out, 300 plus already to the wrestlers who participated in this project. So we're at least trying to ease some of the stress of the lost bookings and some wrestlers who have put all their eggs in the wrestling basket being jobless right now. So it's been a really fun and just productive project all around. And I was happy that we got the first episode out last night on IWTV. We had a lot of people watching too, which was awesome. A lot of talk on Twitter about it, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It seemed like those who watched did enjoy.
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm so over audience-less wrestling right now. I'm just so done with it. At first, with all this stuff going on, it was WWE, AEW, they're going to be doing audience-less shows and empty arena matches. And I'm just it's different. Let's check it out. And it's cool for about 2 seconds.
It's tough, and it's a testament, in my opinion, to the performers who can grab your attention right now, because it's very tough to do when you don't have really anything to play to but a camera and a cameraman.
Yeah.
And we're just, I think about classes at the Limitless Dojo, all these people are just consistently prepared to do everything, every move, anything possible in the ring to the crowd. It's all about building to the crowd. It's all about working to them, and it's all about the ups and downs that they give you in the ring. And now to just be without it, it's really, it's cool in a way to see who can still, as a viewer, if I'm not feeding for reactions as a viewer, if I'm just watching this and trying to be, taken for a ride here with no background noise here, is it possible for these guys to do? And I think it's a lot of pressure on the commentators too.
Yeah.
They have to tell great stories for these matches now, even better than before, in my opinion, because there's not that downtime to give to the crowd.
Yeah, and look, I'll be real with you. Generally speaking, I don't love studio tapings like this in terms of a viewing experience, because I think lacking a real crowd to gauge reactions off of doesn't necessarily get a match over in the way that I think I would want it to. That's just my personal opinion. But my point that I'm making here is that seeing people actually getting a chance to react to something and like feed a reaction, I was like, oh my God, I've missed this so much.
Yeah, and that's why like some of these dojo tapings provide that kind of environment where it's really stimulating to not only those watching in attendance, but to the viewer as well.
Like, because I've made this clear, and I know that this is not going to sit well with some of our audience and some independent wrestling fans, but like me personally, I am not a huge fan of other talent surrounding a ring going nuts, or like people on commentary just screaming and losing their minds at everything that's happening. Like, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's some indie commentary where it's just like, just every move sounds like it was the Undertaker's tombstone,
Of course, yeah.
And like I don't really like that, generally speaking, and I feel like sometimes studio tapings that is what you get. But given the circumstances of where we are right now, it was so nice just to have reactions and like people just like, having fun and all that. So I really did enjoy that element of it for sure.
Good.
So let's get into this meat and bones wise. Basic Becca making her. Was this her Limitless / Let's Wrestle debut here?
So technically, no,
it was not. Correct. She did another taping, right?
Yes, yeah. She hasn't competed on a live show for either Limitless or Let's yet, but she did compete at the February Limitless Dojo taping. She teamed with Mike McCarthy against Ken Ali.
That's what I thought. Well, she has a big breakout moment here. She takes on Aiden Agro, who is one of those staples of Limitless Wrestling and arguably one of the top dogs in Let's Wrestle, and she beats him. This was not expecting, Randy, but that's setting quite the tone for your program right out of the gates, don't you think?
Yeah, quite an upset to open things out. And Basic Becca, an incredible performance. I do want to point out how new Basic Becca is to the professional wrestling world. I believe this was match 9 or 10 for her, maybe. So super new, has only been on shows for the past few months. And takes one of the longest tenured Limitless Wrestling roster members to the limit, and Aiden Agro, who I think may have underestimated her a little bit. It was kind of a new edge to Aiden Agro here.
He was a little. It looked like he was being managed by me again.
Yeah. I was just gonna say he must have spoken with you before this contest, but an incredible performance from both of them. I like seeing more attitude, more emotion coming out of Aiden Agro. And I think like Basic Becca for being, I said this on Twitter last night, for being as new as she is, if this is a sign of things to come, I think she's going to be a top level performer in New England before long. So
why give someone with only 8 or 9 matches a chance on a stage like this?
Why not? I mean, here's the thing about the dojo tapings is like there can be situations where maybe someone gets in a little over their head. That's the freedom that we provide, though, and that's the fun of all this. Is like
right.
This was a match that we actually, I think myself and Johnny Torres put this together, but we're just kind of going through the line of people. We didn't even know Aiden Agro was coming, and this was just a match of two true like athletes who I think could really work with each other well, and I think the contrast of their styles would be something that could be fun together, and I think it was. But to go back to your question, I mean, we're giving opportunities to like the dojo students who some of them, Dylan Nix, for example, a couple months ago, he had his very first singles match at a Limitless Dojo taping against Alexander Lee, and that's going to be coming out soon on YouTube. It's just like this is this is the place to test things out. Like if shit goes wrong, then it's so much better to be in front of
Sure.
your fellow wrestlers around ringside than
Sure.
than a live audience. I tell everybody, like, if you have something fucking weird or crazy in mind, like not too crazy, but like crazy enough that it would feel obscure to maybe try this in front of a crowd right now until you work out the kinks, like this is the fucking place to do that, and
No doubt.
that's how we get some of the funnest matches that happen in these dojo tapings, and that can lead to future bookings for people just for kind of sticking their neck out there and trying something different.
And that's not me being critical, by the way. That's me genuinely.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. So, Basic Becca, what did you like out of her? I thought she definitely, because this is my first time really sitting down and watching her, she definitely has charisma. And that, as she continues to develop confidence, is going to grow more and more and more. She's certainly athletic. Maybe you want to give a little background to her background here?
Yeah, so I don't know a ton. I do know that she is a former gymnast. She, I believe, is out of the Rhode Island area. Don't quote me. I could be totally wrong. But she's from Southern New England. I believe she's toiled around with like the Bell Time Club and Nepois. But it's just in such a short amount of time really gets a lot of things that some people don't for quite some time. And a lot of people who come from like a gymnast background, it's just they take to the movements of professional wrestling a lot easier.
It's like a
and
fish to
I
water.
definitely think that. Yes, and I definitely think that's the case with Basic Becca. So I'm excited to see, like, as she becomes more comfortable with professional wrestling, and I'm honestly super excited to get her in front of a crowd. I've never seen her in front of a crowd. I've seen her wrestle 3 times, never in front of a crowd, just at Limitless Dojo tapings. So that's going to be the next step. I think she is definitely punched her ticket to Let's Wrestle once everything kind of clears up and we get rolling again.
Do you know how old she is approximately?
I don't. I feel like she's right around like my age, so like 23, 24 area, but I don't know that for sure.
I thought you were 16.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to that. I look it.
You really do. You got such a baby face. Jesus. Oh, my God. As someone, as I can say this now, in their late 20s, I can say that. But no, I thought she was impressive, man, and obviously picking up a win over Aiden Agro is no joke. I think that if she can just exude a little more confidence, and that's something that comes with time, obviously.
For sure.
And knowing your spot, where you are in the ring, knowing, ring awareness is something that also you develop over time. She's going to be there, and like you were saying, just some of these athletes just pick it up so naturally. I'm listening to the audiobook version of Under the Black Hat, Jim Ross's new autobiography.
Oh yeah.
And just talking about, guys like Brock Lesnar who they just picked it up just so easily because of just what freak athletes they were.
Right.
So hopefully something like that could happen with Basic Becca. I thought she was a good start here. Alec Price, your boy, defeating Antoine Nicolas. This was a match that I know that these two wanted to have, and they got to have it. I thought they worked really well together, both very athletic individuals in their own right. Man, Alec Price, dude, just keeps climbing and climbing that ladder. He is getting so freaking good here.
Yeah, he's getting good quick, and this is actually this is a match that we kind of had in the can for an upcoming Let's Wrestle event, but I should make that announcement too. It's been a couple days, but we did postpone Let's Wrestle Volume 15. That goes along with what we said earlier about April events in Maine. So that's really, we don't have any events planned moving forward, 100% honesty, because we also had the Bangor Comic-Con shows get moved. So we were going to be there at the end of the month of April. That is not happening anymore either. So Let's Wrestle kind of on a hiatus right now until all this clears up. But that was a match that we were planning to have very soon in Let's Wrestle. So we had this opportunity to do it. I really wanted to do it because I feel like these are two of the best high flyers in the area. They're two of the biggest risk takers. They just do crazy creative things in the ring, and I figured putting them together would create some fireworks, and I think it did. there was some. I don't know if you saw that move in the corner, Antoine.
Oh, it was insane. It was insane.
Alec pops him up into the neck breaker.
It was insane.
I don't know if I've seen that in my life.
You said that on commentary. You're like what? It was crazy.
It was a very fun competition here between two up and coming high flyers in the New England area, and I think Antoine, like if he really puts his head down and really gets in the ring more and works at this, I think he's going to be a top tier competitor here in a couple of years. Like there's no reason why he can't be. He's stunningly athletic. Like it baffles me every time what he can do. I just think I think his body control sometimes it's a little wild, and I think that cost him in the match with Alec. He got sent over the top to the apron, lost his handling on the top rope, and then Alec was able to capitalize and knock him back down before he could springboard back in. So I just think it's minuscule things he needs to work on, because he was very close to taking down Alec Price, who's now a Limitless Wrestling core roster member. He's had success in Let's Wrestle and was the number one contender recently. So could have been a big win for Antoine, but a big win for Alec Price. We
haven't spoken about this at length, but what happened with Antoine's mouth recently? Jesus,
we haven't talked about that. So last Let's Wrestle, which I guess was 3 weeks ago now, maybe 4, he was in the cluster jam. There was Troy Nelson was in this cluster jam, making his return to Let's Wrestle. And he was kind of cornered by 3 competitors, 2 of which being Antoine, Nicolas, and Chip Chambers. All 3 competitors charged in. Troy Nelson did his infamous split to avoid contact with these 3. As Chip and Antoine are coming in, Antoine, I'm not sure if it's very tough to tell on the footage, like if someone trips in there, but there was quite a collision between Antoine's mouth and the back of Chip Chambers' head. And all of a sudden you just see his front tooth fly out on the hand cam footage. At the time, I had no idea I'm watching the match. I had no clue that any of this had happened, and no one's making any indication, because his tooth, one of his top front teeth pops clean, out of his face.
Just straight out.
The entire tooth. It did not chip. The entire tooth, flies out of his head. And it's fucking, it's crazy how clean that came out. But then referee Derek Douglas
just picked it up.
Thinks that it's gum. So he boots it to the floor, because Antoine was not bleeding, there was no indication that he would have had a tooth knocked out. You know what I mean? So I think he thought it was gum and just kind of didn't soccer kick it, but just booted it out of the ring to get it out of there. And luckily, Troy Nelson was on the floor and he picked it up and he starts examining it. And Jason Worthing took some pictures of Troy Nelson examining it on the floor. And all of a sudden, I don't remember who rushed up to myself. I think it was myself.
So then it becomes a game of, okay, whose tooth is this?
Well, dude, the match ends and I still don't know that he's lost a tooth. There's been no indication. And so then...
No, I'm just imagining Troy trying to figure out, okay, whose tooth is this? Because it's not one of mine.
Yeah, honestly. Probably checked his own mouth. Who knows? But... yeah, someone rushed up to me and a couple other people with a tooth, and I'm like, holy fuck. And I bust through the curtain, and sure enough, there he is with no tooth. And I'm like, wow. So I guess downstairs, I missed this. I sent someone to grab him ice and then went down to make sure he was okay. And in the midst of the rest of the event, Alexander Lee went downstairs and shoved the tooth back in his mouth.
So it just slid right back into place.
Well, it took some fucking force from what I understand, but got it back into his mouth. He left to go to an emergency dental appointment, right? And luckily they were able to put it in place. They wired it, put some I don't know. Something in it is not a concrete thing.
Yeah, they binded it back in.
And I think they'll have to do a root canal, or they already have. I'm not sure if it's happened by now, but he's going to be completely fine.
That is insane.
It's
might want to start thinking about wrestling with a mouth guard.
That was said quite a bit that night, but I felt really bad for him, because I feel like he just has some tough breaks sometimes, but I think he's Like from the first time that he debuted in Let's Wrestle to now, he's made great strides. He looks great right now. I think he really had a standout performance against Alec Price, and he has another fun match coming up in this series. I'm not sure what episode it's going to be on, but he's got one more coming in this series.
Let's talk about standouts here. Zach Burden defeats Eric Johnson, one half of the Let's Wrestle Tag Team Champions here. This was a huge coming out party for Zach Burden. Those of you may not be familiar with Zach Burden. He was Big Moxie Matt Mahoney in the main wrestling circuit for a while, and he was in Let's Wrestle as well. Took some time off, went away, was working to get his spot back, reinvented himself a little bit. He looks a little different now. I thought this is a great character, and I thought he worked with a guy that he's so familiar with, his trainer, and I thought they had a killer match.
I agree. He's been down a long, winding road. He actually started training back in the day, so he was a fan when I was ring announcing early on at IWE, like 2000, end of 2013, early 2014. And he had a group of friends he'd always come with, and he actually started training originally with Sonny Roselli at Main Event Wrestling. And then when that folded, came over to IWE, started training under Eric Johnson. As you said, he was Big Moxie Matt Mahoney for a few years. Ended up having kind of a falling out with IWE and kind of took some time off and was looking to reinvent himself. And we had him in the early events of Let's Wrestle, and then it became an issue with consistency with him. We had actually this match planned, him and Eric Johnson, I guess like a year and like very early Let's Wrestle, like we were building up to a blow off between them. We were going to introduce this new character like way back at that point. And something came up where he had the jet, and it kind of just lost our faith in him for a while. And he was going to take some time off anyway. So it just kind of felt like his heart wasn't in it at that time. And he's really made a lot of strides to come back strong. He's been in the Limitless Dojo. He's been at all the Let's Wrestle events, coming to help out, get some ring time before the show if he can. And he's been doing these dojo tapings and really proven himself that he, wants to be in Let's Wrestle and wants to make more strides of moving forward. And had a really standout performance here against Eric Johnson. Like, this was taped on the last day, and something that I really wanted to get out there on the first episode, because I feel like this is probably one of the better matches he's had in quite some time, I would say. And Eric Johnson, who is a 15-year pro of the state of Maine, I don't know if I've really said it, but like he was my avenue into professional wrestling. He was running IWE at the time when I wanted to come in and just be on ring crew or do something. And he was kind of the avenue in for me, and Eric Greenleaf as well. We came in at the same time, and just fun contrast of two guys who are at different stages of their careers in the main wrestling scene. Eric Johnson has been going since I was a kid, a very long career. Some may know him from Chikara as Jive and Jimmy. And I was very interested actually to see who, of those watching, who knew Eric Johnson, because he has been around so long. He's not necessarily well-traveled, but he does, a lot of people in the main wrestling area would definitely know the name Eric Johnson or Jive and Jimmy Capone.
I want to talk about a couple things on this. Obviously, Eric's a staple of Let's Wrestle. Might we ever see him on a Limitless show?
I think it's certainly possible. We've been trying a lot of different things with him lately to kind of figure out what it would be for him on a Limitless show if it were to happen. He has done some of the fair and festival events before, but has never been on like a big Limitless show. But I always say never. We're definitely trying to see what we could out of the Stigma recently as well, to see if that was a tag team that we wanted to use in Limitless Wrestling. They recently wrestled the Main State Posse on a recent Let's Wrestle event, but I mean, it's going to be the same thing when we come back. We're still going to try things and kind of see what fits and see if we can figure out the best case scenario for people to debut at Limitless Wrestling.
And talking about Zach Byrne here, he is one of my personal favorite people that I met during my time in main wrestling. I think Zach is a great guy he's been through a lot. I worked a handicap match with him, and he and I had like a blood feud in IWE that was like almost a year-long feud. And it was just so much fun. It was so easy to work with him, and I wish him nothing but the best. And I like this new character a lot. I said it to you. it's kind of like Michael Keaton Batman, smashing the glass, little Beetlejuice element to it too.
Yeah.
I kind of like it.
It's something that's got more substance than the redneck who drinks Moxie. You know what I mean? And that's a plus from the start. So I think if he can keep adding layers to this, and I told him too, he should start putting out some promos and some just content of that character to kind of build upon that and figure out what it is.
He's a good speaker too. I think
he's a very good speaker.
I think he's a voice actor, right?
He is, yeah. He's a professional voice actor, but he's always been a promo that you can believe. You know what I mean? And that's not always something that you can get from people, especially early on in their careers. Is a promo that actually makes you feel something.
It's that Dusty Rhodes factor, man. Some guys just have it, others don't, and he definitely does. So hopefully more from him. I definitely would like to see that. Then Anthony Green, Retro AG. He's just, he's feeling mighty cocky these days, and he's just like, I'm gonna give you all a treat. Puts his title on the line, and it's Davian stepping up to the plate here. Obviously, she herself is a staple of Let's Wrestle. We've seen her at some pretty high stages in the New England pro wrestling scene. I would imagine this is not the first time that they have locked up, correct?
No, they competed in Let's Wrestle.
They did.
I believe like 6 months ago,
yes,
7 months ago.
That's what I thought. And they've got good chemistry together. They work well together. And she's really good, man. I've always said that. And I'd like to see her on some bigger level stuff because I do think she's very talented. But AG does retain here. This is, first of all, excellent match. I kind of figured going into this contest that it was going to be very good, but I do think excellent is the word. Two top-tier competitors out of the New England area. Davian, the first ever Let's Wrestle champion. She won the first ever Let's Rumble back in 2019. And she's truly been working her way back up to Limitless Wrestling. She was like a Gen 1 original of Limitless Wrestling. She was there pretty prominently throughout the first year or two of Limitless Wrestling. It's just been with Davian, it's been more about what's the avenue back for her in Limitless Wrestling. We toyed about the idea of having her with JT Dunn, similar as they do in Chaotic Wrestling. There were a couple things that we were like thinking of very recently, and I actually talked with her, I think in January or February, about a couple ideas to bring her in the next couple months. But obviously everything's on hold right now. But I think this certainly solidified that she's going to be back in Limitless Wrestling very soon because she took the Limitless Wrestling World Champion to the limit. Just excellent stuff out of these two. And not that I expect any less out of Anthony Green, but he really, in this pandemic at the Dojo series, as you'll see in the coming weeks, came and busted his ass and, really proved why he's been the Limitless World Champion since September. I appreciate her getting the spot here, and I appreciate AG putting the title on the line in this setting. And, say what you want, he definitely believes in himself enough to feel confident in doing that.
Yes.
And he's had quite a few open challenges, too, in his reign. So
he has, yeah. I mean, since he won the championship from MJF, I think he said that night in a backstage promo that he really wanted to be everything that MJF was not as the champion, someone who will take on all comers, someone who, won't need to know their opponent ahead of time, someone who will, if they don't have a championship match on the card, they'll do an open challenge and they'll throw it out there to the locker room. Just a couple months ago, I think you were there for this show. He, for Ava Everett's birthday, gave her a Limitless Championship match at Let's Wrestle. So he's definitely not afraid to put the championship on the line. I think it actually, I thought that at least until this match, I think it kind of lasers his focus. And honestly, when the championship is on the line, he knows that there's minimal mistakes to be made. So just to give a little spoiler here, that's not the only Limitless Championship match in this series. So we do at least have another championship match on the way.
Well, what's on the way for episode 2, Randy?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit since we're on the topic of Anthony Green. He's going to be back in action on episode 2. That's going to be going, I believe, same time slot as this past week. So I believe it's going to be next Tuesday, 5 p.m., independentwrestling.tv. If you don't have an account, you can make one and use the code Limitless when signing up, not Limitless Wrestling. Limitless when signing up gets you a 5-day free trial, and that's not just for Limitless content. That's for everything streaming on the network. They're doing live streams every single day now with different events. Plus, there's hundreds of promotions on IWTV. You can scour through the library and find some cool stuff. But AG going to be back in action, this time non-title match, but going up against the upset winner of episode 1, Basic Becca, who's going to get a big opportunity here after defeating Aiden Agro. It's going to be a very big test for her against the Limitless Wrestling World Champion. But this was a match actually personally requested by Anthony Green. After seeing her performance against Aiden Agro, he wanted to put her to the test as well. So very excited for that. That's going to headline episode 2. Also on the card, first time ever, All That Ava Everett is coming to the dojo, going one-on-one with Danger Kid. So I'm very excited for that one.
It's the first time ever between those two.
It's a first time ever singles match. I should clarify because they have been in tag team matches with each other before, but never squared off one-on-one before until now.
Danger Kid like being back up in that area, Maine, right now.
Yes.
I know he just relocated closer to the dojo.
Yes, very excited, even though everything's kind of on halt right now. But
right.
I mean, he's been talking about this for a while. I think he was back when he moved to Portland. Like it was a bummer because he was the person I think at that point that I most went to kind of bounce shit off of, and he's always kind of been that person who I can just call at an obscene hour or message whenever and just shoot some shit off on and get a real honest response back. I have a few of those people, and he's been one of them for a while. And it's good to have him back in the area. I think he was very excited about it as well. It's a very nice place and good part of town. And I don't think he ever really wanted to leave the area. I think he more so did it for wrestling, to be perfectly honest, because that really cut down his travel time and could kind of make things easier on the job front as well, where it cuts down time. You have to be on the road so you could, be into work earlier potentially. So I think that he liked it for the duration, but I think he's happy to be, closer to home and closer to his family as well, who was a great distance away when he was in the Portland area.
It's true. You bounce a lot of stuff off me and then you just completely ignore it. So it's a good.
I do not completely ignore everything.
Okay, fine. Just mostly ignore it. Fine. And we're also going to see DL Hurst make his Pandemic at the Dojo debut.
Yeah, he was spitting some fire this week on episode 1. DL Hurst will make his first appearance at Pandemic at the Dojo coming up on episode 2. And man, he was firing off some shit. He wants to get to the champion, so we'll start his road at least. We'll see what we can put in front of him for episode 2.
I definitely think that would be a great route to go as well. I can't wait to see Mac Daniels, who I know will be showing up on this at some point, correct?
Yes, I think you'll see him on episode 2, but he won't be competing for a couple weeks.
That's fine. I don't care when. Save the best for last. Whatever. I don't care. You make it make it work however you want to. So go check out all this stuff, guys. It's all over Limitless Wrestling social media. Definitely something that any wrestling right now is a good way to help pass some time for sure. We've got a couple more minutes here, Randy. So just like any good match, we're going to call something on the fly here.
Okay.
It is WrestleMania week, believe it or not. I know it doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel like it at all.
But it is. So you're a pretty big wrestling fan as well. What are some of your favorite all-time WrestleMania matches? So maybe give people something to keep themselves busy on the network this week or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe some underrated classics or guilty pleasures.
We
did this as our top 5 on Living the Gimmick this past week, which is available on all podcast streaming services, of course.
I'm a huge fan of Shawn Michaels Jericho from Safeco Field.
Okay, so 19.
Yep.
That is a really underrated WrestleMania match. That match does not get as much love as it deserves.
Personally, it's one of my favorites because it's just two competitors who I'm a very big fan of. And it just came at a time when I feel like it was the perfect time for Jericho to have that match.
And I think that match, truthfully, even though Jericho main evented the year prior as champion, I think that match is like Jericho's coming out party on I am a top tier talent level.
Yes. And I think that that's a match that kind of won over, I think, a lot of fans' eyes of putting Jericho on a map to them, of someone who can hang with someone like Shawn Michaels for that amount of time. I love that match a lot. I love Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, the retirement match.
24.
From a genuine emotional standpoint, more than an in-ring work standpoint, and I think that's kind of everyone's view on that who had watched, either competitor for a long time. Just very much enjoyed that one. I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Some of my favorites, TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7. One of the very best. I've said to you, probably my favorite gimmick match of all time.
Yes.
TLC 2. Shawn and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21.
Oh, that was tight. Yes.
Oh, my God. That match is incredible.
You know which one I like a lot? WrestleMania 30. Fucking Orton, Batista, Bryan.
I was there for that, and that was an excellent match.
I enjoyed the fuck out of that because that was one of those moments I remember. I don't know who I was with watching that, but I remember having the conversation of how invested the crowd was. And that's just not.
So I'm going to give you the live perspective here.
Please.
Because the crowd was totally into Bryan winning and everything, and it was obviously an incredible moment. But a lot of the crowd was still in shock about Taker at that point.
Right,
So
that's fair.
The crowd was actually hotter for Bryan's first match that night against Triple H, which I think is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, opening match in WrestleMania history. I think that and Owen Brett are probably the two best opening matches in WrestleMania history.
Owen Brett is fantastic.
Yeah. But the crowd heat is not there as much for Owen Brett as it is for Triple H and Daniel Bryan.
Right.
Because, the story they're telling was incredible. It was 70,000 people. And I just watched that match because, ESPN's been airing the WrestleManias.
Yes.
And I went back and watched Bryan and Triple H and thought they just put on a clinic. And it really goes to show, Triple H gets a lot of crap, but God, when he is on, no pun intended, when he is on top of his game, he is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, 100%.
Hogan
I'm
Rock.
a big fan of, what'd you say?
Hogan Rock.
Okay. I like Mick Foley Edge in the hardcore match a lot.
Of course you do. That one, that doesn't surprise me.
How could I not?
That doesn't surprise me. That's probably the greatest WWE hardcore match of all time.
It was very good. Eddie and Kurt from
20 is great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The finish on that, rolling out of the boot.
Yes. Fantastic.
And then the inside cradle.
Yeah, with the ropes.
Using
Loved
the ropes.
it.
Oh, it's so great. There's so many good ones. You talk about Edge, man, and you and I were chatting about it online. Edge goes away for 9 years and cuts the greatest promo of his life this past week.
Yeah.
Take every pro wrestler. Listen to this, okay, folks? Any pro wrestler who is trying to figure out how to, find their voice doing a promo, especially maybe you feel a little awkward looking into a camera, just straight on. Go watch that Edge promo from Raw this past week. It was a work of art. And I'm so bummed that match with Randy Orton is not going to be in front of 60,000 people.
Me too. I'm severely bummed about it, but I'm also interested because I'm kind of excited to watch WrestleMania in the aspect of I'm interested as to which performers have a standout performance with no audience. That's just something that interests me, and I really love to be taken for the ride without because I'm such an adrenaline junkie for like the fans and the fan reactions and the pop. That's what I look for now. That's what I kind of feed off of when watching a program, and I think some other people would probably share the same sentiment. But
any guesses as to which match might be able to do that?
I was just gonna say I think Edge and Randy Orton won't have a problem.
Yeah.
I really don't think that they're gonna have any problems with this. Obviously, it's a bummer, but I don't think they're gonna have any problems. And I'm very interested of how they're going to format this WrestleMania because I feel like more and more of these matches, I'm starting to look at the card and realize, okay, they're doing the Firefly Funhouse, right? That's a thing. Cena and Wyatt.
Yes.
That's going to be taped at a different location. I assume this boneyard match.
Boneyard match, which is basically a buried alive match.
Fuck yeah. I hope it happens at like a gimmick cemetery, and I hope fucking Taker rolls up on the bike. Like, that would be cool. Like, why not? Even though it's kind of ironic with Matt Hart.
This.
Huh?
You're embracing this.
Well, what fucking more can you do at this point? Like, if you want to enjoy this show, you have to kind of embrace like what restrictions we're under here, and just like think outside the box a little bit. I was just going to say, it's like ironic that Matt Hardy just left, who's someone who's been thinking outside of the box for a while now. Like, this is the time to implement some shit like he's been doing. Like, how can you spice up WrestleMania and maybe make it more theatrical and movie-like with the presentation of everything, instead of having fucking 20 matches in front of no fans in the same ring? You know what I mean? Like, you have this opportunity. It's terrible, but like, I don't know, like you could create a really fun boneyard match experience with AJ Styles and Undertaker that people could be talking about for 20 years. You know what I mean? You really have that opportunity right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Orton Edge that will get that job done, and I think Bryan and Zayn, if they're given the time, are going to tear the house down.
I hope they get the time. I saw that announced this week and got really excited, because if that match gets at least like, just give them like 15 at least, you know, and let them go, and just that it would be very fun to watch, and it would take some people back to times when we wished for this in WWE 15 years ago, you know.
Yeah, and you know what? I just think Daniel Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him, is just like the most incredible performer of all time. And
he's excellent.
And his whole thing is, I've never been able to invest in a performer as an audience member in the way that I have with him. So it's ironic now that he's going to work this match in front of nobody, and I bet you he's still going to drag a lot of people in. And Sami Zayn's really good at that too. So
yeah, 100%.
I'm very excited. WrestleMania coming to you, 2 nights. Too big for one night.
They're pushing that so hard. I love it.
It is such a Vince McMahon-ism that, I remember Mania 33, the ultimate thrill ride.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, these are... And I've been going back and watching some old Manias in preparation, and just seeing those old Vince McMahon vignettes at the beginning, that WrestleMania 11, Lawrence Taylor's fighting us. The Bam Bam Bigelow is coming to the Hartford Civic Center. It is just fantastic.
It's
really
great.
Is. But yeah, so we got Ace Romero on the next episode of Limitless Wrestling Podcast. So get your questions in for that, and we'll certainly have a lot of fun. Randy, anything else you want to
add? Nothing more. If you want to watch Pandemic at the Dojo again, you can go to independentwrestling.tv, use the promo code Limitless when signing up, get a free trial. We are going to be dropping the matches from episode 1 periodically this week on youtube.com/Limitless Wrestling. Basic Becca versus Aiden Agro actually already up for free, so you can go check that out now if you'd like, and we'll be back with you next week with Ace Romero.
See you later, folks.